This is the Black Rifleman's channel, and you're with your host, your brother from another mother. And I'm here today talking with you and looking for your feedback concerning the incidents that have occurred over the last few days. Started out with the shooting in Louisiana of Alton Sterling, and ended with the event in Dallas with the death of 5 police officers. And in between, you had the death of Philando Castile in Minnesota. Each event was different, and each event shared similarities. The similarities were that each event ended in the death of a young black man. And you can talk about all the various differences as far as whether or not someone had a criminal background, or they were perceived as a threat, or they may have been unstable, or, had military training, or were part of a group referred to as a terrorist organization, or whatever else. But the bottom line is, when it was all said and done, in each event, people were dead. Sad. And I've actually been doing a lot of digging online, talking with people that I trust and so forth, and getting feedback from them prior to preparing this particular video. First off, peace and love to the families who lost someone over the last few days. The incident that catches in my mind the most, well, they're twofold. I'm going to get into the last event, the event in Dallas first, and then from there I'm going to address the event on the death of Brother Castile, if I'm saying his name right, who was killed in Minnesota. And as far as the Dallas event is concerned, you had a young man who decided he was mad at law enforcement, and he killed 5 officers. He killed 5 men who had families. Probably 5 men he had never met. I don't know if he'd been arrested by these guys before or not, but he'd never met them. He killed them. And in the end, it cost him his life. To get up in a building or anywhere else and shoot people randomly, that's an act of cowardice. It's an act of stupidity, foolishness. And when you make that type of choice, well, the result that you see is the result you get. If you go out there and make it your intention to kill people for no reason or for foolish reasons, well, don't be surprised when you are called and it's time for you to give up your life. I guess what concerns me, as far as Dallas is concerned, is the fact that it's got American people on edge. Right now, folks are walking around and in some parts of the country, and they're tense. They're afraid. They're not sure how to interact with one another because they don't want to be perceived as a threat. They don't want to be putting themselves at risk at the hands of others simply because they happen to be black or brown or white or yellow, red, freaking polka dot, whatever. But I do believe this Dallas event, I think it's going to change the way things go down in America. Not for the better, but for the worse. If I were an LEO, it would cause me to approach new situations with a level of caution and understanding that there may be someone there that I'm stopping for a traffic violation who sees me as a notch on their belt and wants to kill me. So now might be the time for for LEOs to partner up. You may not be safe rolling solo anymore. And at the same time, as a civilian, one who travels about and so forth, being stopped by law enforcement, driving while black, DWB, that has always been a tense experience. But now, knowing that people are tense, law enforcement is tense, the civilian population is tense, American people are a little bit uptight right now, a little angry right now, and I'm intentionally understating all of that, that being stopped may be a risk. So, if you are a CCW holder and you are stopped by law enforcement, be wise in how you address that situation so that you can drive away with your life. That is not an issue of pride or anything else. It's an issue of go home and be able to see your family and your kids at the end of the day. If you are armed when you are stopped by law enforcement, you've got to make it up in your mind as to whether or not you're going to alert the officer to the presence of a weapon. Now, I know in some states you don't have to acknowledge that you're carrying a weapon. And in some states it's required that you tell the officer right away that you do. And please, if you are an LEO or if you are someone who's had experience with this directly, then please chime in. But it seems to me that it might be wise to keep your CCW paperwork in a location in your vehicle that does not require the disappearing of your hands. And, that you explain to the officer step by step what you're going to do. All right, officer, in my sun visor is where I keep my paperwork that I'd like to share with you. I notice I haven't said what paperwork it is, okay? Perhaps it's your driver's license and your insurance and your registration and your CCW permit. And you give the officer those things with your license and CCW permit on top. And at that point in time, your hands are on the steering wheel, palms up. And then at that point in time, he can determine whether or not he wants to have you disarm or if he wants to disarm you. At that point in time, his weapon may be drawn At that point in time, he may ask you to follow some directions on his end. Do so specifically. That seems to me like it would be the wise way to handle it. On the other hand, if you are stopped and you tell the officer that you are armed, do so while both hands are either on the steering wheel or on the dashboard, someplace where they can be seen. And ask him how he wants to handle the situation, or how she wants to. She may want you to step out of the car and determine that they want to, restrain you in some form or fashion while you're being disarmed. They may want you to pull the weapon out, but have that conversation step by step so that you can avoid any unnecessary killing. Now, it seems like our brother in Minnesota, I saw the video, and unfortunately we were only able to see the aftermath when his girlfriend was putting everything up so people could see it on YouTube. I don't know if there was any body camera video or dash cam video that showed what led up to Philando Castile being killed. Apparently, Castile's shooter, the officer who shot him, his lawyer is saying that it was a reaction to a gun and not to race. I don't really know about all that. I just know that a brother got shot who was carrying legally and who, according to the video, the girlfriend claims that he told the officer that he was armed and told him that he had a CCW, and she says that the officer told him to produce his ID and his CCW permit. He reached for his wallet, which is usually going to be in your waist area, and at that point in time the officer shot him more than once in the arm, possibly in the upper body, and he died. At some point during that exchange, he was dying or he died. That hurts, man. Because this brother is dead. And his girlfriend, and I'm not sure if the child in the backseat was his and her child or just her child, but a child has been scarred for life, more than likely observing that. The woman scarred for life. The young man is dead. I dare say that even the officer involved in this, it might have effed up his head. It may have messed up his head, pardon me. And I'm just wondering, okay, how do you handle that? If you carry, how do you deal with that? If you are an officer in a state where you know people carry, how do you deal with that? It looks to me like it was a bad shoot. Okay. It looks to me like the officer in Minnesota walked up to the car afraid. That's what it comes across to me. If I was to play the scenario out in my head, I see a guy being stopped by an officer for a tail light or some other infraction, and the officer looks and sees, shoot, this is a black dude. Now people say that's crazy, but I know that there are some people who think that way. Where I live in my neck of the woods, there are people who simply see a black man and immediately their heart rate goes up. It's a shame that exists today, but it does. And so I'm thinking that this is a cop who, that was his reaction. Shoot. And so he walks over there and his heart's beating and his hand may already be on his weapon, or he may be thinking, oh, I'm going to shoot this guy if I need to, or whatever. And then the dude says, look, I have a CCW. And as he's going to produce the CCW paperwork, he gets shot. The same thing happened in New York when a brother was leaving his girlfriend / hairdresser's house one evening. He was on his way to Florida to visit his mother and had just gotten his hair braided and was coming down the stairs in the projects. And if you've been to the projects, you know they're not the most well-maintained. And the lights were out on the landing that they were on. Unbeknownst to them, there was a couple of officers coming up the stairs. And the officer that was coming up the stairs pulled out his flashlight, and the other cop that was with him pulled out his flashlight and his pistol. And when they looked into the window of the door on the landing, they couldn't see anything because the lights were out. Opened the door, and 28-year-old Akai Gurley was shot because the officer who pulled his pistol out has what they refer to as a negligent discharge. In other words, he was afraid, he twitched, and he pulled the trigger. Now, I was always taught you don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot, even if your weapon is out. So this is not the first time that a young man has been killed because somebody was afraid. They couldn't even see Gurley, is his name, the guy in New York, and they put holes in him and then had the audacity to debate who was going to call it in and all kinds of stuff, and it was foolishness. But this young brother is dead. And now we have, in Minnesota, Brother Castile, who was actually carrying and was doing so legally, and he was killed. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking with one law enforcement officer, and I'm not going to mention him by name here because I don't have his permission to do so, but he told me that in the Minnesota situation, that looked like a bad shooting to him too. And here this young man is doing exactly what he was told to do from what we've been told. You know, there's no camera footage leading up to the event, unfortunately. But from what we've been told, he did what he was told to do, and it cost him his life anyway. And now he's dead. Philando Castile was killed while doing the right thing. So if you live in a place where you can carry a weapon with you on a daily basis, you really got to sit down and think, okay, if I'm going to continue to carry, and if you have access to the ability to carry, you should carry. Okay, if you can carry, carry. I highly recommend that. You gotta keep your game tight, i.e., check your vehicle, man. Just trying to avoid unnecessary confrontation. So I gotta make sure that my brake lights work. I gotta make sure my headlights work. I gotta make sure my hubcaps match. I gotta make sure all the different things that may draw unwanted attention from an LEO that can cause me to be stopped and then force me to engage with someone who may be afraid and may be more afraid when they not only see that I'm a black man, but that I'm a black man who is legally armed. I kind of went off on a tangent, but the LEO I was talking about earlier, he said that he feels more secure when he stops someone and they say, hey, I'm a legal CCW carrier. And I said, that's interesting. Why is that? And he said, well, basically it's because the majority of your CCW carriers, these are people who have all passed background checks and more than likely have a similar mindset to me, talking about the LEO speaking, and they're not going to tell me they have a CCW if their intent is to shoot me. That's why he said he thought it was a bad shooting, and I believe the same. I'm not going to tell you I'm armed if my intent is to put a cap in you and to end you. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a CCW carrier. a guy who's going to do that, it seems, would be a guy who would just surprise, sucker, and boom, 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 and smash the gas and be out. But he didn't do that. And it still cost him his life. The CCW carrier, the legal armed citizen, should be the one that causes you to feel safe. If you're an LEO and you walk up on the car and the guy says, hey man, I'm a CCW carrier, so I am armed. Because there's no surprise there now. Now I lived in a state where carrying was common. As a matter of fact, open carry did not even require a permit where I lived for a little while, and I observed an officer stop someone, and he asked him, hey, do you have a weapon on you? And the guy said, yes, I do. He said, okay, would you please produce it for me? And this officer, I'm standing there watching this whole thing go down, maybe 25 feet away from where I'm standing, and the guy pulls out his weapon, and I'm trying to remember, it's been such a long time ago, but I do believe the individual carrying was a person of color, and the officer was white. If I remember correctly, that's the case. And the guy pulled his weapon out. He gave it to the officer butt first. The officer cleared the weapon, dropped the magazine, set it on the hood of the gentleman's car. They had their discussion about whatever the law was that was broken, whatever it was. He wrote his ticket or whatever it was, gave him his ticket, and then gave him his weapon and got in the squad car and drove away. I was impressed at the way the whole thing went down. I was surprised at the way the whole thing went down. And you would think that's the way it would always go down if a law enforcement officer stops someone who says, yes, I am a CCW carrier. But that's not what happened with Brother Castile in Minnesota. He said he was armed, legally so, and he was killed in front of his woman and possibly his child. That makes me angry. It makes me sad. It makes my heart hurt. It makes me sick to my stomach because that could be any of us. So I guess I'm saying all that to ask this question. Now that this has happened, how are you, if you are a carrier of a firearm, going to proceed knowing that this is the level of risk out there? I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to carry and bear arms. I believe that it is that right that protects the others. And I know that there are many people out there who disagree and so forth, but you probably won't be listening to my channel unless you think the way that I do. But I invite discussion and conversation, and if you disagree, let's talk about that. Let's be able to see the other side of the coin. As for me and mine, we will continue to exercise our Second Amendment rights, and but with a level of caution now, knowing that if you are stopped and armed, that even if you are legally so and that you've not produced your firearm, it still could end your day. So when you're out there in public, do as little as possible to draw unnecessary attention. What do they call that? The gray man effect, something like that there. You're just going to blend in, and if you are a law enforcement officer, hey man, LEOs, love and respect, pardon me, to you guys. You do a risky, dangerous job. But if you walk up on a car, man, don't walk up afraid. Like I always say, stay strong, stay vigilant, stay prayed up. That goes for everybody. So don't walk up on a car afraid. And, if you determine that someone is armed, then you have to have it made up in your mind how the disarming of that person is going to go down while you do your duty. So a challenge to the civilian and non-civilian alike when it comes to interacting and knowing that both individuals are armed. How are you going to handle that? That's my question. How are you going to handle that so that no more people get killed unnecessarily? Because folks are upset. And if you are in the CCW community, you should be upset. Because this dude was killed while apparently doing everything by the numbers. Now, I was waiting on this video simply because I was unsure how it was going to play out, and I wanted to get some more information. I want to talk to a few more people. I talked to my dad about this. I talked to my wife about this. I talked to LEO about this. I've been listening to other people whose opinions I respect on YouTube to get their feedback. I've listened to some folks whose opinions I don't necessarily respect on YouTube to get feedback, just to see what's being said and so forth. Look, don't let this incident drive a wedge between the citizenry of the United States of America. Okay, we are American people. We are all fingers on the same hand. Don't forget that. And when the fingers on the hand work together, they can hold and caress. They can make music, or they can make a fist and protect, and they can defend, or they can be destructive. But they have to work together for any of those things to happen. So we have to decide where the fingers on the hand are going to go. When the fingers on the hand each have their own mind, all of a sudden now they can't serve the body. And every citizen in America is a finger on the hand. So don't allow all the race-baiting foolishness to divide us. Don't allow that. Think of a person as human first. Okay? Black, white, brown, yellow, red, whatever they may be, whatever their ethnic background, cultural background, whatever else it may be. Well, here, you're a citizen, so see that first and realize that's the unifier. Do not allow, don't allow race or the color of a face to be the deciding factor in how you interact with someone. There are folks out there who want that. They want a race war. They want a riot. They want an excuse to go out there and shoot people and kill people. We don't want that, okay? We talk about SHTF, WROL, and those different things, the Schumer hitting the fan without rule of law. We talk about that stuff. But we don't want it to happen. I know I don't. I prepare because I'd rather be ready and able to move forward in a crisis than to be unprepared and then there's a crisis and I'm not able to move forward. And it may be a crisis that happens right in your home. It may be a crisis that happens as you're driving home, something that's just an SHTF for you. Or it may be town-wide or county-wide or statewide or nationwide or maybe worldwide. I don't know. But I'd rather be prepared for it and never have to deal with it than having to deal with it and not being even close to being prepared. So that's why I prep. Don't let color and so forth cause you to differentiate how you interact with people, whether they are a prepper or a CCW person or just, a citizen. Thanks for listening. I hope that this can create some conversation. And this is your brother from another mother, the Black Rifleman, representing the Black Riflemen's Organization, reminding you to stay strong, vigilant, and prayed up. Don't forget, the sound of gunfire against tyrants is the rhythm of liberty.